So welcome to 10 Chancery Lane Gallery to 31 Women Artists, Hong Kong. This exhibition was inspired by Peggy Guggenheim's 1943 exhibition, and we're very happy to have the curator, Caroline Ha Thuc, who's put together a fabulous show of 31 women artists in Hong Kong. So this talk is Feminism Behind Us, Sexuality and Diversity in Hong Kong, with Ellen Pao, Leung Mee Ping, and Yuk King Tan. So I will hand it over to Caroline Ha Thuc. Caroline is a published author. She is French and Hong Kong based, and she specializes in Asian contemporary art. She's written books on contemporary art about Japan, Hong Kong, and China, and she has a new one coming out about Southeast Asia that we're all looking forward to. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Katie. Thanks a lot, and good afternoon. Yeah, I'm super happy to be here with Momo, Yuk, and Hélène. Welcome. So for this second conversation together, we're going to explore the challenging topic of feminism, or maybe I would say rather post-feminism in Hong Kong, and beyond this issue of sexuality and diversity, looking at your art practices and experiences. And I said challenging, and I see you are laughing. It's because each time, indeed, I pronounce the term feminism with a woman artist, I immediately feel that it might link to a very, narrow and outdated label that most artists refuse. So obviously, it's never about looking at any artwork through this single lens. And I feel that it is true that usually it does not bring anything to consider the gender of an artist in order to approach critically his or her artwork. So then you might say, then why talking about feminism, right? So is feminism behind us? Is this an archaic question? Just by looking at this show, we have 31 women artists working in Hong Kong who are from Hong Kong, from different generation and different background. So in itself, this exhibition shows, the amazing vitality and diversity of the art practices of these women. So again, where is discrimination, if any, right? But then, beyond the surface, when talking in private, I would say, we feel that there are many women artists who acknowledge they had or they have to do compromise between their personal aspirations and, let's say, family responsibilities. And besides, if we think about feminism from a more maybe enlarged perspective, in order to include other marginalized communities, then I feel it's worth raising the question, right? So because there are still so many discriminations from that regard. So yeah, let's debate. And maybe before we delve into your artworks, I'd like to start with a first question, which is like, in your art career, did you ever, felt that the fact that you were a woman made a difference? And I would like to start with you, Momo, because actually the work that you are presenting here at the gallery, Souvenir Entomologique, is precisely about such a moment.
Okay, and actually, I think this is a really big, topics in class. May run more than like 30 sections, but for the private angle, that when you speak about the work, I have my own experiment. That long time ago, I divorced, and I have to move out my husband's house and live alone. When you do not ask for anything from your husband, and then you find out that you only face 4 empty space. And then I will finally find that only the insects living with me together at any corner. Some very common insects that I was so afraid before. And then you have to face to them because you really know people would, to make them die. And also, slowly, and also as a living creature like me, and you compare with the insect, and then it is face to face. If we have, so I use a microscope to look at the insect, how they look like, and then they look back to me, and eye to eye, contact, and I try to make friends with them, and I observe the difference, like the spider. I try to fit, I don't know him or fit the little things with coffee. And then after that, the net is totally different. When I feed for, like a soup, it's not the same. So every day I feed for something. It's just like to take care about your kid. And then slowly, I'm not sure we can make friends, but there's only things I can to, accompany with me in a really empty space. This is how the words come. So totally, I made like 8 pieces, the animations. This is the animations of the insect right now. So I would like to, exhibit in a bigger space. It's only the screen, and also I will present my little insect there.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think, so this work really reflects this, like how you, the moment when you became independent somehow. And this can be linked very much to your practice, Hélène, because you very often you say that at the beginning you have chosen the medium of video also to be independent. And I guess in the 80s, being a woman doing video art, it must have been challenging somehow.
Actually, when I start doing movies, I work on Super 8. And that was when I was still studying radiology. And I went to a student camp for organized by the Cinema Club. And so we have to produce a Super 8 at the end. And then we were divided into groups, and I was paired to 3 young men, and so I start to ask, so who wants to be the director and who wants to be the cameraman and all that, and they have all the roles except me, and then I asked the director, so what do you want to do, right? So the director actually has not many ideas, I realize. And so after like half an hour into shooting his film, I feel not, how to say, I feel I can speak up to him and say, I do have an idea, probably I can be the director and all that. And they say, yeah, you can be the director, but I can sense that it's very uneasy for them to shift, to receive orders from a woman director. And so I try to make the shots very simple and less short so that I can finish the movie as soon as possible. And after that, I felt that it's very difficult to work in teams, especially with men, I think. So I decided video would be a very good way for me to go independent on shooting, not movie, but to do video work, yeah.
Thank you. And for you, so Yuk, you told me that being a woman and also coming from Chinese descent had a great impact on, even the way you look at the world and so how you conceive yourself.
Yeah. So I guess if we talk about the idea of was it discriminatory, did you find anything that was different being a woman? I think as an artist who's conceptual or looking at relative value systems, it was really interesting to me growing up in a Western country and as an Asian or Chinese person, and then navigating that as a woman as well. There are a lot of different kind of categories that I could fit into. So there was a fluidity of boundaries, but at the same time, other people wanted to put you in very narrow and very set formats, especially, like this is a long time ago now. So myself, and it was 80% women at my art school, of course, like usual. So we had to find our own little cross-section, And we had to make our own gallery system because at that time it was really male in the gallery system and in the art system, as well as the curators and the intellectuals and the critics. That actually hasn't changed in my own territory that much, which is frightening. But we started working also back at the school that we were there and trying to change that, especially in terms of socio-economic positions, because I think we were brought in to help the idea of the monetary system of the university, because masters was a lot more profit gain. And of course, many of them would come from Korean countries, China. So there was really interesting political connotations about where we came from as artists. And if I could talk about one thing that I would like to just leave on, on tape, I think for mothers of my generation, or just women who are trying to deal with multiple different caretaking, whether it be their own children or the dependents or even helpers that you really want to take care of, the system of the art system is meant to be idealistic, and it's still meant to be just radicalized after the fourth wave feminism and other different inclusionary practices, but it's still really difficult, just in terms of time, like the weekends and like over time, also conferences that are not really based around that. I think that's true equality, is that kind of area. So yeah, I'm talking about discrimination or ideas of difference. But if I talk about my artwork, that's a different kind of more complicated territory.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks you. So, and then what about sexuality? I mean, it's not something we discuss very often in Hong Kong. So, is it taboo? And even in your art practices, how do you address that? Like, I don't know, Hélène, here you are presenting one video work titled She Moves. It's an old video from the late 80s. So it's about this woman, she's crying, she jumped into a taxi and it's raining, but we don't see her body, we don't see anything, rather we just see the raindrops and the condensation of the water, and somehow it's very sensual. So I know it's also an experimental video, but it's all about sensuality, and even like the rain, the way it drops, it's like a caress, and also your treatment of image, it's very blurry, and again, you have this sense of sensuality. So is it your way to approach maybe indirectly sexuality?
I think just looking at the name that I pick, she and ... and then moves ... is about a woman's subject, and it's not necessarily about a woman, so-called a woman. I give you the false impression that the woman jumped into the taxi. Actually, the body of that woman comes from an album. It's an album cover. So there's no woman, there's no actor, there's no body, but it's just an imaginary space that we can call it a woman space. And I have this idea because it's Virginia Woolf have this book that's called The Room with a View. And I'm thinking, yeah, maybe I can talk about a room that has, this feeling of woman in the room, or just the room presenting itself as a woman subject. Because I know in European language there are gender attached to objects, and I suppose a room, I don't know whether it's like in French, whether it's feminine. So I'm trying to work with this idea that objects can also have gender, and I want to show the space of that, of this gender, a she, and yeah. So that is the start of that video, the idea, yeah.
At the same time, if I may, if she's crying, I felt also, if you look at art history, there are so many women crying. The Marie-Madeleine, tons of Marie-Madeleine crying, and also, of course, Dora Maar by Picasso and so on. So is it also a way for you to make a detour, or to criticize this cliché that we associate with women?
I I think if you remember the video has a song, yeah. Sometimes I miss the song because it was a record on a different soundtrack. So sometimes when I play back, if the player doesn't have that soundtrack, doesn't have the facility to play back this special digital soundtrack, then you have no sound. But so every time when I play this video, I have to check whether the person will get the sound. The sound is actually a very popular song from the Second World War, and it's called.
We'll meet again.
Yeah, we'll meet again. So I think it's very interesting to have this song because when I have think about what kind of objects that we will assign to women, for example, in Chinese culture or in Hong Kong. I remember there is a rock in Hong Kong that is called Mong Fu Sek. I don't know how to translate it. Let me try. It's like yearning for husband rocks. Or waiting for husband. It's better actually. Yeah. So I remember this rock that is waiting for her husband to come back. So that rock actually is in like the top of a mountain, and in the woman figure kind of comprised of different rocks. But I mean, if you look afar, you probably realize it's a woman looking far to the sea and waiting for the man to come back. So I'm thinking, okay, so woman is always like at home and then waiting for the man to come back. So I'm thinking, okay, the most recent love story or romantic story that I always remember is the Second World War, because when I was young, I watched quite a lot of war movies. And the most touching one is it's called Sunflower. It was acted by, the actress is Sophia Loren. I like her so much. I mean, as a kid, I really like her. And then her movie, the movie is talking about her as a girlfriend. Actually, it's a wife, I think, from a young soldier. And then the soldier went to the battlefield, never come back. So Sophie Loren went into some flower field searching for, I don't know, I don't quite understand at the age of probably 6 to watch this movie, but I just feel, oh, it's so beautiful to have like a beautiful woman walking in a sunflower field. Actually, yeah, very good. So I think, yeah, what I'm trying to do in the movie is to capture what Sophia Loren is, thinking about her man, and try to induce this emotion in the room of her own. Yeah, this is part of
Okay,
the.
thanks. I see. Yeah, and I mean, Yuk, I don't think you are also directly anyway. I mean, addressing sexuality, but just looking at the piece you are presenting here. So it's one object that comes from a larger series, Crisis of the Ordinary, and it's a saw. So you could, of course, think that a saw can be associated with men and kind of virility. But in your case, this saw, of course, it's been mummified somehow because you have wrapped it so tightly with many very colorful threads. So is it for you a way to resist or maybe to annihilate male dominance?
Yes, Crisis of the Ordinary is a very important series over the last 2 years. I mean, there are about 200 and 300 objects collected from a variety of different movements, Hong Kong predominantly, also Korean and also New Zealand and Australia. But I chose this one especially for 31 Women because I mean, the idea of an extension of a human, whether it be a tool, digital devices that we have now, and the hacksaw was just one of my favorites. So I just, out of the whole collection, it seemed perfect for the show. I think there is like definitely a term where installation artists or conceptual sculptural artists utilizing tools that are gendered, like the workshop, the male-dominant space of like the hacksaw, the circular saw, all those tools was actually really liberating to do at art school, and also even now to be able to have that kind of affinity with it. So having something that is like a hacksaw, and then putting a material which I have made my own language, the silk string, which can be seen as much more about craft-orientated practices. So there is definitely interplays there that I'm talking in terms of, I would call it socialized values. And then I had the grids, or the kind of, I call it Cuisenaire blocks of color, which also relate to another system that I'm not actually going to talk about, but also systems of kind of economic value of the actual object. So how much metal it has in it, also how much the tools in terms of like hardware tools in the economic market, the stock market we're doing at that time. So there's all these levels that are playing with there, including the idea of gender with some of these items. But in terms of gender in Hong Kong, I wanted to say that having two teenage boys and going through the local school system, and then more recently we transferred them into more international school, there's only, I think I know that there's 7 hours the government recommends, not mandates, for sexual education in Hong Kong over a year, annually. And I think 80% of like students in Hong Kong, one of the surveys would say there's actually less than 2 hours. So it is like, also my parents, it's a very Confucian, it's a very difficult to talk about sexuality, I think, here, especially if you're bringing up kids who will be having sexual experiences. And if you read someone's Discord, as I do sometimes with my kids, it's a bit of a wilderness out there. So all these topics like this expression are really important, I think, in terms of our experience about being artists and practitioners.
Yeah, sure. And I mean, same for you. I mean, Momo, I think you don't address, I mean, sexuality per se, but you are also working a lot with women, because in your practice, there is a large part of community-based artworks. And during these moments, you talk a lot with different women. So, I mean, do you encounter also such a context situation? Do you feel still maybe the weight also of like the local Chinese patriarchal, heritage, or maybe also the British heritage, like, like this so-called decency, which might also like left a trace here?
Okay. I have to say I have to divide it into 2 parts. One is my teaching education background. And then I find out every year the graduate student, they always worry about the honor project. That means it takes 6 credits, a longer time to finish their very main important work before the graduation. So this seems like a very good chance for them. And most of our school students are, the girls, and they would talk about quite different things, especially when they talk about the gender. And they suffer from man-dominate family, and the raps, the race, the experiments, and then the sexuality experiments, and also the gender about lesbian or homosexuals, and I find out we didn't have this kind of educations before they come to our art school. Even we talk about the art piece that's related to the gender, but actually how to dealing with them to with a concrete, creative idea. And from the very beginning, you spend a lot of time to talk with them. They really friendly to speak to you. And the second is how to transist this idea into an artwork and also the form of the art. The third thing is most worry about is they worry about the people know about what they talk about the secret. The thing about this is the secret. And this is the time to take quite, the brave to show everything's improperly. I think every year, 10% at least. Until now, 40 years passed, nothing changed. Okay, this is how I feel. The most important part there on the project. The second thing, I have been practicing the socially engaged art quite long time, and I have the chance to wandering around different places and the cities, and I find out most of the project leaders or the participating artists are female. No matter the work itself, no matter the leadering, no matter the, after that, we always like here and now we have the conference, we have the symposium, and participating the artists or the leader, the people, most are women. And I think why? Such as we are dealing with quite a lot of social issue. It must touch about the social issue related to socially engaged work. But those issues all created by the woman, or they are the, the marginal group, the most marginal group among the city, among the community. And they have a different issue, just like my students, the concern, they are women, they have kids, they may be thinking about they have different gender. Of course, especially when you're working in South Asia, they will never be touched about that. It shows shame. And also they really have to carry most of the duty, the farm and the homework, everything, as a woman, carrying quite a lot of children. When we have the conference, those children around us, because at the same time, the women have to take care of them. And then this makes us so sad. And also, it stands out one point that maybe the woman, the sensibility or the very femininity approaches, and then can bring up amount of the people and communicate with the community much easier than with the men dominate the community. I mean, especially in South Asia. And just 1 week before I hold a socially engaged art in about post-colonialist Hong Kong and South Asia. And those international creators, when they show us the cases, most are relevant to the female and the female situations. And also, it's on the surface, it looks not female problems, but actually it is. All cause about, the family domination, blah, 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 like this. It's really make me so sad. And they think about they can join this, the case or the workshop, and then can solve most part of the problem. It's not only about the farming, no people, no energy to do the farming, such things. But mostly at last, we think about it is related to a female problem and also the sexuality. Yeah, this is my experience.
Sure. Then maybe the challenge would be how to transform that into artworks, as you were saying. And I guess it's even more true if we think about. I mean, you mentioned lesbian. I mean, the LGBT issue. But I think, I mean, regarding LGBT, actually, I feel that now there is a younger generation of Hong Kong artists who dare, I would say, really address the topic directly. So it's really new. I don't know. Maybe you will tell us how do you feel about that? But I mean, Ellen, you've been addressing that for a long time, but also very indirectly. I was thinking of this work, Big Lai Shu. So it's a work from the 90s. It shows you actually bumping your head against a table on a loop. And I know it's also a way to reflect on the political situation at that time, but it's at the same time, as often in your work, you have the two dimensions that are connected. I mean, the private maybe and the political. And it's also about the constraint of gender identity in Hong Kong. So do you remember why did you chose to address this in this way, and in general, how do you address the topic?
Well, it's actually quite a long story, but I try to make it shorter. Big Lai Ju, this is a sound, right? Big Lai Ju is actually means nothing. You can see from, if I write it out in a woman, because the sound can be, in Chinese character, can be other character. But the name, the title of the work is basically a sound. And usually like sometimes I would say the work is called BIG, big, and Lai is LAI, Ju is Ju. Anyway, so it's actually it's a sound for me. So because sound for me is kind of like the identity. Because if you have a pet or someone, you first thing you want to name, and the name is just a name. You know the sound. You don't usually write down the name of your pet, but it's a sound, and then the sound would just become your identity, right? So I start with this, and then why Big Lai Ju? Why this sound? The sound actually belongs to this furniture wax. It's called the pledge. It's still in the market so that you can spray on wood and or I don't know, yeah, okay. So I'm not a housewife, but I know Big Lai Ju. It's not, there's not much domestic things that I look at, but Big Lai Ju is quite interesting. The name. In sound is Big Lai Ju, but the name in the original English is the pledge. And in Hong Kong, we were given this pledge that we have 50 years of unchanged life. So that's why I use this sound, the pledge, and Big Lai Ju together to do this work, which is about whether the sound is true or is it's referring to the things that I want to I understand. So this is the part where why I use sound why I bump my head and make a metallic sound. And the second thing is that I remember is about women is in talking about, in Chinese culture, there are some women warriors that we are so proud that, the first one that I always refer to is Fa Muk Lan. And Fa Muk Lan she go to war to replace her weak father. So she pretend to be a man and go to the battlefield. So this is quite a strong character, and also remember by, as a little kid, I would always say, oh, I want to be Fa Muk Lan. I want to be her because I want to be strong. I want to go to the battlefield, not in place of my father, but I want to fight, So so I identify with someone like her. And but during war, actually, most of the time, I think women, if there is any bomb that's come to your house, women will just hide underneath the table. So, but the Fa Muk Lan wants to come out and they want to fight, and they have to come out from that table. But then it was stopped by the table and making a sound that is metallic. So that is the whole idea is like this. Yeah, the first layer.
But then anyway. Is it a limitation of being a woman then?
Yeah. Not really, but it's not a limitation, because I haven't captured the woman that comes out from the table. Actually, it keeps trying and trying, and you can never declare that she lost, right? She keeps trying to come out from that table. Yeah, it's actually I would say a gesture of trying to be strong and independent. It's a continuous gesture, yeah. And then the reason why I use two images is because it's not a real body that is making a sound. It's me. My front image and the back image. It's just an image that is making the sound. So it's a totally virtual idea. There's no body. I'm not doing any performance work. I'm just putting an icon or a woman body on under the table, and then it is making a sound. So that's, I think, the first step for me to think about what the body means and what is the virtual world means. I mean, the cyber feminist question, is technology a woman, things like that. And I start to, thinking in that direction.
I see. Okay. And I mean, any take on that? Yuk, you wanted to say something?
I'm really inspired by these two amazing artists, and I have been most of my career in Hong Kong. But just about feminism in general, I think we laughed about it because it's such a big topic. It's very difficult also to contextualize it at this time. I'm being inspired by also, I think younger artists are doing something very different in Hong Kong. I think they have a different sensibility and mentality, and a different in terms of political aegis. But I would say that I think this question needs to be asked of every male artist in Hong Kong, rather than only being usually around certain types of marginalized perspectives, or within conferences or within talks, or because it's feminism is more for men than it is for women in some way at this time, in terms of, if we think about kind of Confucian, like Chinese patriarchy, the role in the family, being vulnerable as a young male student, artist, person, or a young male teenager, as I have two young male teenagers in my family. So that's just kind of really interesting to me in terms of where do we also posit this conversation, and how does it go forward? And I think that's kind of how it can open up in Hong Kong as well. And I could talk about a work that I did called Helper, which is about power dynamics, and it was working with my domestic helper. And I think the irony is that I have her and my employee, and there's a very problematic areas in terms of economic strata in Hong Kong with domestic helpers and immigrant and foreign workers, and that is utilized in my art practice to help me make artwork. And as a socially activist artist, it's also incredibly difficult to kind of justify that within your own, whatever your own kind of format you have, whether you're a socialist or capitalist or neo-capitalist, whatever symptoms you have. And so that work that I had, The Helper, where I gave over the space to a kind of a collective to utilize the art space in their own way, ironically was the sexiest thing I've ever done, because they just came with the hair and the clothing, and then totally altered the space in terms of what they were doing, what we were asking, in terms of the kind of education about that space. It was kind of interesting to me, the surprises that happened within gender power dynamics.
Yeah, sure. I mean, because of course, beyond that, it's about diversity, right? And I think, the three of you are addressing in different manners this very important issue of diversity, how to embrace it, how to avoid it becoming a form of social or cultural confinement. And maybe, I was thinking of one of your work, Momo, Don't Blame the Moon, because yes, because in this series, so it's a series of portraits of children. They are all from different religious backgrounds. Yeah. So maybe you can talk about it, because for me it's very interesting how through dream you try to maybe show that there are possibilities to open up and not be only categorized through any category you belong to.
This was quite a long time ago. I'm staying in Sri Lanka as an artist residence. So I find out they, has a very diversity culture. Especially they are not like in other country. They allowed more than 5 religions in the same place. So they let the children to dream what they want to be, but actually it's not them. They try to seduce them to choose the road what they wanted to be, and after that, but they're unable to really choose their religion's belief when they're just like a kid, so they have to follow the family. So I bring the kids to go to different church, temples, and then where they belong, they believe the religions, and in front of their God, they speak for their own dream. What I want to be. I want to be a doctor. I wanted to be a teacher. And actually the dog just behind the kids. Okay? So one by one, and then it's so pure. I think it's so pure. The dream is so pure. And what they believed in the religion is so pure. But in reality, they have a lot of struggle, fight for each other. The religions, this is the reality. So therefore, it is what I feel about the kids. And so you can say that overall, all my works related to kid or innocence, somehow like this. If you think about to bring it into like a family framework to talk about this work, I just talk about myself. Maybe I really care about them, and yeah, that's it. But the dream will, the dream will gone, or when you grow up, the dream will not become the truth. And this is the main point. But I have to, and also you asked me one question, you may not ask another, but I can talk about now. So my experiments, it's long time ago when I was working in mainland China, they often invite me to join some exhibition of art making, especially public art. So I'm often the only one, representative of like Hong Kong to get there. So we filmed like 20 males, and I'm the only one, the woman. And then they discuss about their thought on how using certain budget and building a public art in Shanghai, the area in a tech park. Okay, so I always said the last one to being asked, what do you think? And I said that I have no idea at this moment because I just arrived. Okay, yes, yesterday. So I have no idea. And they all said that, oh, that means you would not use such kind amount of money. So pass it to us. What? This is very strange. And after that, I make an artwork, a really big public artwork. It is G5, the delete button from the Health and from the new generations of Apple, that at that time in a tech park. And after that, the opening, and also after the opening dinner, everyone to talk about this work in front of me. But they never ask who made this work. It's Momo. And says that, oh, this one, we never see this guy, the guy. And the young guy, he may be a British boy and very open, ba. And no one asked me. That means they never think about a woman can do some kind of conceptual artwork. The conceptual way or this kind of abilities belong to man, not a woman. This is how I feel, the only woman within the 21 artists in mainland China. And also, if you are a really woman Chinese artist, I'm too old at that time. Otherwise, honestly, some of the women, they will be invited to have a late dinner or a separate cocktail dinner and after the exhibitions. It is true, and I find out when I get back to the hotel, they all room, lock, nobody there. It seems they are not interested in me. It's the truth, yeah.
Yeah, it's true. It's also what you are showing. Maybe going back to this series of work, The Crisis of the Ordinary, it's like really, discriminatory practices are really embedded in like daily life, right? It's also what you want to point to.
I forgot about the helper. So in the end of that work, there was a taxi driver and the group that was there participating, they were cleaning the car of the taxi. And the calculation was for the 17, that small amount of time that they finished the car, it was the labor of 5 of these domestic helpers for one male Hong Kong taxi driver, which is actually one of the hardest jobs in Hong Kong as well. So we're just talking about socioeconomic power, and also the idea of economic value was really important in that work. And I transfer that over into A Crisis of the Ordinary because, again, it's about value systems of objects. I've also reclaimed them because they're found objects coming from very heightened state of situations in Hong Kong and other places. And I think, but just to go away from that sort of topic, but I did work recently for Current Plans, which is in Kowloon side, a friend of ours runs it, and it was working with a text by Ursula Le Guin, who is a really interesting one of the first science fiction writers, became well known, and also wrote this very nice feminist text, which is called the carrier bag theory. I don't know if you know this one. And so what it goes in, so one of the first Neolithic theories is that the spear is the first tool. And, the spear is the idea of the heroic person who stabs it and provides for the whole village. But the other kind of like representative that she has is that actually the carrier bag is the first Neolithic tool. And it really radicalizes the idea of like values and importance. And if you can think of that in terms of community rather than kind of singular masculine hero, when you can think about kind of collective work and information, that was part of the kind of genesis behind the string and these kind of like things that dribble down, the things that can kind of carry and contain other experiences, and also are translated and transmuted by this kind of like mummification that I do over these objects or these found objects. So all of those things are implicit conversations within these works about gender and power dynamics.
Sure, and I think what is important now is to think more about fluidity, right? I mean, so the ability to move from one identity to another. So maybe when it comes to your work, I mean, when you address diversity, it can be also the diversity within oneself. Like maybe your work as an invitation to look at yourself from another perspective. And I was thinking of this work, I mean, the specter of the wheel. So it's an installation on one part you have a heated wall with wax melting, and on the other side people can look at themselves through a screen. So it's a thermal footage actually. So when looking at yourself, you don't recognize yourself. You look like a stranger. And so, and you look at the wax melting. Again, I know this also has a political meaning, but in terms of self-reflection, I think an identity is quite interesting, because the wax, of course, we know that it's maybe, in philosophy, it's, I mean, the stereotype element of something that can change while like remaining itself essentially. So it's also about this ability maybe to change, to transform oneself while like staying truly oneself, right? So is this also something like, I mean, it's embedded in your work?
Yeah, the spectra of the view is built especially for a show in the gallery that starts with a video diary of myself. It talks and it talks about basically a lifetime, a living being, and so the first thing that I associate with wars, Shimus also associate with wars, but I mean this spectrum of view, wars mean kind of like as hard and metallic, and it's more like a high pressure regime, like in a prison or something, so it's like control, or, but because human being is as a being is has warmth and soft and all that. So I try to make the contrast of these two being and put it on the heated wall where you can see wax. And in the video, next to the video diary video, there is a video documenting on my birthday. I don't remember which year, but I mean, on my birthday, I was documenting, I was on shift in the hospital, so I was documenting how I put on the candles on a glass plate and try to blow it, but there's no kick. So I was documenting this performance, and so the wax actually we associate with the birthday cake, and then not birthday wax candle, and it also it's also associated with a number of years that you have been living. Yeah, so it's basically it's a symbol of how many lives you have lived, like all the tears of wax. It's like, you know. And then on the other side is, if you are still alive, you are warm, and then you can move around, and you can see yourself as a stranger, as you said. I mean, I really like what you say, that the identity is really something that is fluid, and you realize if you look into the mirror, or you realize it when you, for example, if you film yourself. So then you realize you are something else, that you don't know who you are. You know, this type of mirror from a camera is always, so that's why I always explore different media, because to capture a human being, you need different light, different camera, not only the camera that we are now like associate with phones or, you know, with movies, but I'm thinking of like different kind of light to see what's this person is. So yeah.
Yeah, because I guess, I mean, again, beyond feminism, it's about how we define ourselves, also how people define ourselves. And maybe first, also how we accept who we are. And I mean, I think there is very often also in your work this struggle. Like I mean, you mentioned bumping your head. So like, and also you very often you talk about abjection. So I would like to ask you about that, because you quote Julia Kristeva in a few cases. And so I quote what you said: "I expel myself, I spit myself out, I abject myself with the same motion through which I claim to establish myself." So would you say that also your practice reflects this kind of struggle? So in front maybe of the multiplicity of your identity, like trying to maybe, I don't know, compromise, or like find a way maybe to fulfill the whole, or is it something that's behind also your practice?
I don't really study feminism in my college years. And I usually find inspiration from theories, or, you know, inspiration from artwork, for example. So my experience as a woman, I always hear people complaining. I mean, I seldom complain, but I feel like every month we have pain in the body, especially you can see blood coming out from it. And then, I mean, menstruation. And then abjection to me is that you hate your body in a way that all this, especially in Chinese tradition, that woman is dirty. So if you hang out your underwear, you know, because every month you have to wash your own underwear, and then if you hang it out, people would think that it's filthy, and then they don't want to go. Is it under the woman's underwear? It's bad luck for them. So so abjection to me is like a woman hating that she has all these things that men hate, right? And then all this hate on her own body comes from nature. Actually, it's not. She feels that she doesn't belong to. She is not comfortable to have this nature of the body performing different acts that is dirty, and, you know. So its abjection to me is like this situation. But I put it into an identity framework, because I use this phrase, actually it's maybe not this phrase, I don't quite remember, but I mean, I use the word abjection, but maybe not this phrase. In a video installation that I have the image of a lighthouse that I collect from the government information service. And it was, I acquired this image during a workshop that is organized by Goethe Institute. And Goethe Institute collect several suitcase of VHS video. And during the workshop, we were given, we can just look at all the VHS and find some found footage, and then we can make use of that to do a work. Actually, diversion came out from that workshop. But the lighthouse give me a lot of imagination about Hong Kong as usually a place would be like a woman body, and then Hong Kong would kind of, if you don't look at Lion Rock, what kind of symbol I would take for a place that I call Hong Kong. And I think, okay, this lighthouse to me is so fascinating because it's kind of like a place structure that you don't know where it comes from. Like Hong Kong you can never say. Hong Kong is just in between like Chinese and Western. You can Sambajang. It's not even, the third party is not even, you cannot really know how to say that this is Hong Kong, right? So I have the image of that. I don't even know where this image or when it was taken. Where is the lighthouse when it was taken? But I definitely know it comes from Hong Kong because in all the suitcase, the video comes from Hong Kong. People, U.S. Army taking video or filming in Hong Kong. All of them should be from Hong Kong. So I take for granted, okay, this is Hong Kong. And why this person, maybe a sailor or something, why he is filming this lighthouse? And I think it's very interesting because Hong Kong is a very busy port, last century, I think. And then every time when sailor is coming from the south coming up to Asia, Hong Kong is like the first hope to reach a safe land. So the Hong Kong lighthouse is really a very good symbol. I think sailor will have a sense what lighthouse from Hong Kong looks like and what a lighthouse from Japan look like. I think they can differentiate. It's me that there's layman that cannot. So I think this lighthouse to me is more about the slang that's called Hong Kong that was identified through other people other than me living in Hong Kong. Yeah.
Thank you. So I think the time is almost up. So maybe any comment on your side, Momo and Yuk, about this larger issue of identity that obviously is very much entangled with this idea of gender issue?
Maybe we wait for questions and I'll add it on then if we have any questions.
Yeah, maybe. You define the identity very much like linked to a place, but what about like now thinking about another form of identity that would be disconnected from any physical place? What would be your take on that?
You asked me the question before.
Yeah, please.
I'm afraid I forget it.
Okay, so it's really the last, sorry, because after we have to finish.
I'd like to ask about the possibilities of an identity that could be disconnected from a physical territory.
Right.
To me, no. I think before when I was young, I said that I'm a global people, okay? Sans frontières, okay? No boundary. But I think this is a concept of identity. Okay, but at the fact that physical territory contains many influences such as food, family members, group relationships, education, environment, and that is everything happens in the physical territory. And it will shape people's thinking patterns and habits, memories. And even if the virtual world or robot, the way of presentation and communication is influenced by the main culture that created it. So it actually has an identity. No matter what, as people said that, okay, my life in a meta, the virtual. And then, okay, it is your background to support your identity, want to change. And that means you still have an identity for yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a complicated issue, isn't it? I guess we're talking about fluidity in private conversations and fluidity in identity. And I mean, there are different ways of kind of theoretical thought, like the fourth wave versus the second wave, in terms of feminist theory or in terms of queer theory now. But just in terms of an everyday sort of sense, just it's been interesting dealing with younger curators, and because I'm also born in Australia and coming from many different places, as well as living in Hong Kong, the idea of the diaspora has been a very big issue right now. And it's really radicalized, actually, how I've been thinking about myself and how I've been experiencing it. And a little bit like how queer theory has informed certain parts of like my understanding in terms of the they versus the notion of dualism. These are the things I think are quite fascinating. And it's definitely more reflective of my experience than previous understandings that I could, or written theory that I had, or other people's understanding of my own experience. So I'm excited by that. And I just wanted to leave like a little bit of positivity there in terms of some of the kind of new ways that people are talking about the idea of duality or dualism.
Sure.
Multiplicity.
Yeah, multiplicity and plurality and the ability to move between different identities. So this plurality of idea, yes. Well, thank you so much, Momo, Yuk, and Hélène. Thank you.